The bustling energy of a movie set was in full swing that day. The lights were bright, cameras were rolling, and everyone seemed to be running around trying to get everything perfect. Clint Eastwood had arrived for a brief visit to check on the progress of a film he was producing, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the whirlwind of activity around him. As he walked through the backstage area, he noticed something unusual. There was an elderly janitor quietly mopping the floor in one corner of the set, his movements slow and deliberate. He looked like he had been working there for years, his wrinkled face showing signs of hard work and dedication. Clint couldn't help but feel a twinge of admiration for the old man's commitment. However, as Clint observed, his attention was drawn to the director, a young, cocky man in his 30s, standing nearby and talking to a group of assistants. The director's voice was sharp, full of arrogance, and it made Clint uneasy as he overheard the conversation. "Can't we get someone to clean this mess up faster?" the director snapped, his eyes rolling as he watched the elderly janitor struggle to maneuver his mop. "This is a professional set, not a retirement home." Clint's expression darkened. He could see the way the elderly man's shoulders slumped under the weight of the director's words, his dignity slipping away with every insult. But Clint wasn't just a passive observer. He was someone who believed in fairness and respect for all people, regardless of their position. "Where are you watching from?" Stay tuned to see what Clint does next after witnessing this shocking display of disrespect. The elderly janitor didn't respond to the director's taunts. He simply kept working, his hands steady as he mopped the floor, his focus unwavering despite the harsh words being thrown at him. The director, clearly growing impatient, walked up to the old man with a smirk on his face. "Come on, old man," the director said loudly, his tone dripping with disdain. "You're slowing down the whole set. We need things done faster, not at your pace." The janitor didn't look up. His back was still bent, his movements methodical. But Clint, standing off to the side, couldn't ignore the cruelty of the director's words. He had seen his fair share of egos in Hollywood, but this was something different. The director's callousness was borderline abusive, and it was clear that he thought nothing of the janitor's age or years of service. The other crew members, who were listening to the exchange, seemed uncomfortable, but none of them spoke up. Clint's eyes narrowed. He had always been one to stand up for the underdog, to speak out when someone was being mistreated, and today was no different. He knew that it was time to step in. He was about to show this young director just how important it was to treat every person with respect, no matter their job or age. What will Clint do in this situation? You're about to see an unforgettable twist. Keep watching. Clint walked calmly over to the director, who was still fuming about the slow pace of the janitor's work. The young director noticed Clint's approach, but didn't seem to recognize him right away. After all, Clint Eastwood wasn't exactly someone who stood out in a crowd. But as Clint got closer, the director finally caught a glimpse of the older man's face. His eyes widened in sudden recognition. "Wait, are you—" the director began, his words faltering when he saw who it was. Clint smiled thinly, his eyes locking onto the director's, with an intensity that immediately silenced him. "You need to leave him alone," Clint said, his voice calm but commanding. The director, now realizing that Clint Eastwood, one of the most respected figures in Hollywood, was standing before him, looked embarrassed. I didn't know it was you," the director stammered, his arrogance melting away in an instant. Clint's expression remained unchanged. "It doesn't matter who I am," Clint replied, his voice steady. "What matters is that you're treating a hardworking man with disrespect." The director tried to recover, his voice becoming defensive. "I didn't mean to." What will Clint say next? Keep watching as the tension builds between them. Clint wasn't interested in excuses. He had seen far too many young, self-important people try to cover up their bad behavior with shallow apologies. "I don't care what you meant," Clint said firmly, stepping closer to the director. "What matters is that you humiliated him in front of everyone here." The director's face turned crimson as Clint continued, not giving him the chance to explain further. "This man has likely been on more sets, worked longer hours, and done more than you've ever dreamed of." Clint's voice was low but filled with conviction. "And you think you can talk to him like that? Like he's some kind of inconvenience to you?" The director was now visibly shaking, realizing that he had made a grave mistake. He looked over at the elderly janitor, who was still quietly mopping the floor, seemingly unaware of the conversation taking place behind him. The young director's ego had been shattered, and he knew that there was no way he could justify his actions. Clint paused for a moment, allowing the weight of his words to settle in. He wasn't just scolding the director. He was reminding everyone on the set of something they often forgot: respect for every person, no matter their role. "You will apologize to him," Clint said quietly, his gaze unyielding, "and then you will never treat anyone like that again." Stay tuned, because what happens next is a powerful lesson in humility and respect. The director, visibly chastised, swallowed hard. He looked over at the elderly janitor, who still hadn't acknowledged the exchange. With great reluctance, the director walked over to the janitor, his posture slouched in embarrassment. I, I'm sorry," the director stammered, his voice much softer now. "I shouldn't have spoken to you like that." The janitor looked up, his eyes filled with quiet wisdom, and nodded. "It's all right," he said in a calm voice. "I've been around long enough to know that not everyone respects what I do." The director, still clearly uncomfortable, stood there for a moment before walking away, his pride thoroughly humbled. Clint watched the whole exchange with a quiet satisfaction. He had done more than just call out bad behavior. He had reminded everyone present that no one was above respect, no matter their position or status. The crew, witnessing the confrontation, fell into an uncomfortable silence, but Clint knew that the lesson had been learned. As he turned to leave, Clint caught the janitor's eye one last time and offered him a smile of approval. "Keep up the good work," Clint said, his voice warm. The elderly janitor gave a small nod, a quiet acknowledgement of the support he had just received. Clint knew that sometimes standing up for what's right meant making uncomfortable situations count. If you believe in treating everyone with respect, no matter their position, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for more inspiring stories like this.